Good afternoon. It's Wednesday, March 15th. My name is Councilman Victor Jones, Chair of the Public Safety Committee for the City of High Point. Here with me in the council chambers are Councilman Britt Moore, Councilman Chris Williams, and we have one item on the agenda, which is our annual report that we get from the police department. It's item 2023-122. The title of that agenda item is 2022 High Point Police Department's End of Year Statistical Review. We have Police Chief and some of my favorite officers in the room. So.
Did you say favorite?
Favorite. I don't like the other.
But he put some in front of that.
Okay, there you go. You got to qualify it a little bit.
Tough crowd.
All right, we appreciate you guys having us again. What we're going to do today is we're going to go over our 2022 end of the year statistical report. As you well know, we track a lot of data at the police department on a, everyday basis, but the year end for us is always big. We want to see how we stand over the course of that past year and compare it to the years before to let us know what kind of adjustments that we need to make if we haven't already made those adjustments on the fly. What I did ask is I asked members of the executive staff to come with me today to do portions of this presentation. We tried to keep it brief. We trimmed a lot of things down from the year-end report. You should get a copy of the actual year-end report, which is much more comprehensive. So if you have specific questions about data, if it is not in that year-end report, you can contact us and we can run it and get you whatever you need. But that year-end report is much more comprehensive. We condensed most of this for the PowerPoint to hit the highlights. We didn't want to take up too much time because it can be a little overwhelming, all the stuff that we do on an everyday basis. Because again, we're 24/7. 365 business, so we got a lot of business going on inside the city. Before I turn it over to the majors, and they do their certain sections, I did want to throw up there, I want to make sure that we don't miss the chance to talk about our model and our pillars, what we're built on, because this model and these pillars are going to be a big part of the actual presentation and the data that we're driving for and we're looking at every single day, every month, every year. So I've asked them to do their little sections and go on. If you have questions, if you have a specific question while they're presenting, please ask. But anything else, if you hold it to the end, fire them off at the end, and one of us will figure out what the answer is for you, okay? First up, I'll have Major Gamble come forward and hit some of our highlight stats.
Thank you, Chief. Hey, good afternoon. Thank you for allowing us to kind of highlight our year, and thank you for your continuous support of the police department. I am Anthony Gamble. I'm the Deputy Chief. Currently, I'm responsible for Patrol Division, and I'm going to hit the highlights of the next two slides. I'm not going to kind of read what you see on the slide because I'm not going to insult your intelligence. I'm just going to kind of highlight some of the things. In 2022, we averaged about 306 calls a day, per day. And so far this year, we averaged 393 calls per day. So we are already up 28.5% in calls for service this year. If you see the map, I know it's small. It's just kind of give you an idea of our beat system, our police beat system. And on the left-hand side shows you the number of calls that happen in that beat. But what I'm going to do is kind of walk you through the city with ward beats so you can understand where the wards are at associated with the police beat so you can understand your crime that's going on in your ward. So our police beat 1 is down there at the bottom, and that matches up with Ward 3. Police beat 2 matches up with actually Ward 2. Police beat 3 matches up with Ward 3 and 4. It's a combination of Ward 3 and 4. Beat 4, our police beat 4 matches up with Ward 1. And then beat 5, our beat 5 matches up with beat 4 and 5 combinations, Wards 4 and 5. And our beat 6 matches up with Ward 6, 5 and 6 combination for you all. So looking at some of the calls for service, and calls for service is those calls that are coming into our 911 center. Those are actual calls that people call and needing our police service. I'm gonna look at traffic crashes. Traffic crashes, and the PD stands behind that, stands for property damage. That means a car hit something. It hit a tree, utility pole, a pedestrian, or another car, but no injuries were reported. So we did have a crash, but nobody was hurt. We averaged about 8 crashes a day last year. Criminal processes that you see down there. Criminal processes are just wanted people who need to be served with a paper. It could be an in-custody paper or just a paper giving them a new court date. Domestic violence or domestic disturbance, those are family issues. That could be brother versus sister. That could be parent or child, or that could be intimate partner. That is another high call we have as well. And so those are some of the summaries or highlights of our calls for service. Self-initiated. Self-initiated is an officer saw something and stopped or took some type of action. He initiated that call. And our number one is self-initiated activity is traffic stops. Why traffic stops? Well, traffic stops is the key to reducing our violent crimes. We don't want bad individuals roaming our city without some type of consequences. Also, traffic stops is another key to reduce those traffic crashes that you see on the left side that we have so many of. All right. Traffic crashes also try to help stop some of the bad driving that you see when you're out. And so we try to affect people's driving while we enforcing some of the traffic laws. Just this past week, one of our officers initiated a traffic stop and got 5 guns out of one car. So those 5 guns that he seized on one traffic stop cannot hurt you, your family, and us. So that's why traffic stops is so important to our crime-fighting efforts. Also, I will highlight, of course, our community-related efforts. I will not step on Major Sellers' toes, but we are intentional. Every time we are intentional to make those positive contacts, non-enforcement contacts with our community. And so that's what community-related events is up there, and Major Sellers will go over that. School safety checks that you see, that's pretty high up there. We just started that in August of last year. School safety check is eyes and police cars on our schools checking every day, making sure that no one is coming to try to harm our kids in the city of High Point. And so that made the number 3, and it only started in August of last year. It didn't even have a full year. All right? And so we're very intentional on that. I think that's all I kind of want to highlight on our calls for service and our self-initiated activity. Any questions of, yes?
So on the school safety check, I mean, in case somebody asks us, what that is, I mean, is that a once a day riding around? Is that a multiple times a day?
It's multiple times because we have multiple units that are responsible for several different schools. And so one school could get checked 3 to 4 times a day.
Did we have any situations that one of those was, instrumental in preventing something from happening, where we saw some activity that was prevented?
Not yet.
Uvalde.
Right, yes.
Uvalde. Not here.
Not here.
After this summer, last summer, that's when we started this program. We said we're going to get on the ground.
Okay.
Yeah, so nothing has happened here, but it is a direct result of Uvalde.
Okay.
Yes. Cool.
Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind. Sure. Councilman Williams, when it comes to DV or DD calls, I know they spiked pretty high during COVID, the high points of COVID. Have we seen a change in that downward? Hopefully, but just a question.
That's a good question. I don't know that, but I can tell you, like on long rainy days, we do have a spike when people are cooped in. So I would suspect that it has probably decreased since COVID, because now we can get out. It probably does increase during the winter times when we're kind of stuck in the house. But coming from COVID, I can't really directly answer that, but I'll probably guess that it probably have decreased since COVID.
Mr. Chairman, Councilman Moore, under criminal process, you said that also involves serving papers.
Yes.
Can you give me an example of what types of papers you're serving?
Yeah, it's all kind of papers. It could be like a failure to appear, you missed your court date, and now they have issued a warrant for you to come back to court. It could also be like a criminal summons. A citizen took out another warrant, but it didn't rise to the level for us to take you in custody. And so that could be that as well, a non-custody paper where.
And when you go out on those type of calls, those are the kind of type of calls that we as citizens see that sometimes get pretty dangerous.
Sure, yes.
Correct.
Yes, people do not want to go to jail. It's not a favorite
Correct.
thing to do. And so those interactions are pretty dangerous for us, yes.
And do you find most of the times when you go out to serve, they're there, or?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm gonna guess again. I'll probably say most of the time 50-50, they probably there, and sometimes they're not. They're not easy to find most times, yes.
Thank you.
Just two quick ones.
Yep.
Can you give me a little description on when you're talking about follow-up? What is it?
Yeah, follow-up is a lot of different things. So follow-ups could include that a citizen is calling back saying, hey, I have more evidence to give you. I got more documents to provide to you. Follow-up could be us following up on a burglary, going back out to the house, looking at Ring cameras, asking more questions of the neighbor, canvassing the neighborhood. So follow-up encompasses a lot of different things. Yep.
And actually, the next part is just a reminder to residents when it comes to, I see a residential alarm.
Mm-hmm.
And just to remind everybody, when you get the email, pay that $10.
Otherwise, it's 50 or something.
Otherwise, you won't like what the results is. I've got enough calls about that.
Yes.
But thank you.
Thank you.
Chief, appreciate it. A couple things on his slides. I mean, I'm glad he put these things up here. Things I want to note, if you look on the right side on that self-initiated activity, there's a key word up there that says proactive. That's going to be very consistent in the next little presentation, especially at the end. We have got to have a proactive police department, meaning our officers are out there actively looking for crime taking place. It can't be all calls that you get in. I mean, that's just being reactive. We want to be proactive and go out and find these things. Crime's being committed right now. If we're waiting for someone to always call us to go out and answer the call, then we're already behind the curve. So I wanted to be proactive. I'm gonna tell you, I think we would all be disappointed if traffic stops was not our number one proactive activity. We have pushed this so hard inside the city, and our officers have embraced it. They make stops for reasonable suspicion and probable cause. That's it. That's the only reason you can make. Now, if they write citations on the other end of it, that's a discretionary tool we give our officers. They don't have to do that, but we want to make the stops. That's how you change the traffic pattern and make the roads safer, because it affects everybody. While everybody thinks you're not affected by violent crime, you really are. I can assure you everybody thinks they're affected by traffic in some way. So we want our people to stop cars. I mean, it affects so many other things in there. That has got to be our number one proactive activity every single year. So I'm happy that's up there. Moving on, I want to hit a couple of our impact crimes. This is really what your police department is going to be judged on at the end of the year. If you're looking at stats and people want to say, well, what are you doing out there comparatively speaking to everybody else, or comparatively speaking to yourself the year before or years before, this is what they're going to get to. So on your slide, what you're looking at is our 2022 impact crimes. We had a total impact crime reduction of 4%. That's good. You've always heard me say negative in this business is good. We want negative numbers. That means we're getting better. So on the left side of your screen, you see impact violent crimes. What that means is if you look at an impact violent crime, put a person on the other end as the victim of that crime, meaning homicide, rape, robbery, any kind of assault, aggravated assault, anything like that would go in the impact violent crime side of the house. We're minus 2%. You probably wouldn't think that if you watch the news. Everything, I mean, it's constantly violent crime here, violent crime there, shootings. You name it, it's out there. So we were negative 2% on the year. Would I love for that number to be a higher negative? Absolutely. That's what we're looking for. But I'm happy with 2%. That means we got better than the year before. On the right side of your screen, your impact property crimes, just the other side of the half. These are crimes like burglary, your motor vehicle thefts, any kind of larcenies, stuff like that where property is the actual thing that is taken. Those are your impact property crimes, minus 4%. You combine those two and you get a -4 for the year. So what does that mean, though? What does the -4 mean? That means we, as a police department, were 4% better than the year before. So from the 2021 numbers, we got 4% better. So on the next slide, if you're looking at your screen, and I put a 3-year on the left side of the screen, and there's a reason for that, and I'll go over it in just a minute. So you can see in 2020, we were minus 8%. So in 2019 to 2020, we did 8% better as a police department. That's awesome. So from 2020 to 2021 numbers, we were also down another 8% in those impact violent crimes. Again, another awesome year. For us to move into 2021 to 2022, last year we were minus 4%. Again, I would love for the number to be higher, but what I'm really looking for is that number to be a negative. Every single year we want negative. That means we've improved on the year before. So if you're getting that progression, as you can see on the right side graph over there, you can look at our numbers for 5 years in there, and you can see that blue line as it's trending down. You're not going to have huge dips and things like that. I mean, it's not going to go to the bottom of the scale because crime is always going to exist. That's why we have jobs. That's why you want us out there enforcing the law. But gradual declines like that get us better every single year. As you can tell, we had a spike in 2019. That's a pretty good little number up there. We were right smack in the middle of COVID. It's not like criminals took the time off for COVID. They weren't staying home. They were still committing crime. But we've been able to tamp that down a little bit over the course of the last 3 years to knock those numbers back down. So that's a pretty good graphic of what your police department is doing. You know, to put it in context, a lot of the things we do, it'll really come home on the next slide. But one of our biggest things that we focus on as a police department are guns. We want to take illegal guns off the streets. They can't, like Deputy Chief Gamble said, every gun we take is another weapon that cannot be used against you, your family, any of our other citizens, and we want those. And I always give this disclaimer. You know what I'm getting ready to say. You've heard me so many times before. If you're a legal gun owner, we're not worried about your gun. That is not the guns we're worried about. We want the ones that are in possession of people who are prohibited by law from carrying that weapon, or those weapons have been used in the committing an offense, a crime. Those are the guns we want. And last year, if you look at the left of the screen, you see the little graph. In 2022, we took 450 guns off the street. As you look around the graph, 2018, 2019, 2020, and 21, it's been a big focus for us. We really wanted to jump on the gun train and start yanking these guns off the street because they do impact our community. This is your biggest part of violent crime, is gun crime, violent gun crime. So we've made a department focus to take those guns, and you can see as our officers have really sort of amped it up every year. I know we're a little bit down from 2021 to 2020 to 2021, but last year really picked it up and took a lot of guns. We're on a record pace so far this year. I hate to say that, but we are. We've taken over 100 and something in the first 3 months. I don't really know what the number is. It comes out every Monday. I don't worry about it. But I know we're taking guns left and right from people who shouldn't have them. So that's a good thing. That means officers are being proactive because people just don't give those things to us. We got to do some investigative tools to go out and actually seize these weapons by law. So the guns are a big piece of the puzzle. On the right side, where are these guns being seized? This is important. You know, you can clearly we're taking out a lot of houses. We do a lot of search warrants through various vice and narcotics activities, and a lot of our violent crimes folks do search warrants. So we take a ton of guns from those investigations. The number two is very concerning. Those traffic stops. We are pulling guns out of cars quite a bit. He gave the example of the officer just last week taking 5 guns out of 1 traffic stop. That's big. That's another reason we want people to stop cars. People are moving around our city freely with these weapons in their cars, and they shouldn't have them. And that's what we're grabbing a lot there. So there's a lot of ways we're taking guns. You know, 450 for the year is pretty phenomenal. I hope we can top that, which is not a great thing, but yes, we want to take as many as possible, but this is a focus for us. And our last one, before I let you get to any questions, we're going to keep throwing this chart out. We've been doing it for a long time. This is our index violent crime graph. This is your impact crimes that went over your persons or your violent impact crimes and your property crimes. If you're looking at a trend, what you really want to concentrate on this slide, because it's very convoluted and small and hard to read, you want to look at the red line and the black line. The red line is our violent crime. You can see from a 1997, maybe a little earlier time frame, how it was pretty good and up there. And through the years, we've been able to drive that crime down if you see it over here on the right side of your graph, the minus 67%, that's how much we've been able to reduce that index violent crime from roughly 1997 until now. Now, along the way, we've had to do a lot of things to adjust our game. Criminals do different things, so we have to adjust as well. You can't just keep doing the same thing all the time. You cannot stand still in this business. We introduced the Violent Crimes Task Force up there in the 1997 range, but had a lot of success with that. Now the game has changed a little bit. A lot of our offenders have become much younger. They don't meet the BCTF criteria anymore, so we're having to adjust quite a bit to that. We introduced our drug market initiative around the 2004 time frame. Unfortunately, again, criminals changed. The evolution of this changed the drug game. It's as simple as that. No longer are we having open-air drug dealings in our neighborhoods, which was directly a result of DMI. That's what DMI attacked, those drug market initiative areas. The phone has changed that, so we're having to adjust again. We had our gang initiative somewhere around the 2008, 2009 time frame. We had a lot of gang activity. We were able to tamp it down there. We introduced our domestic violence intimate partner program, around that 2013, 2014 timeframe. We're still going strong on that. We still have good numbers. I know Councilman Williams, you're very involved with it, with that and the Family Justice Center. We cannot thank you guys for enough for the commitment that you've given us and our citizens and the folks over the Justice Center. It's been huge. The amount of traffic we're getting there is through the roof. So we're now being able to provide victims with some sort of recourse. And then most recently, there's that PCGL. What does that mean? What that means is people, cars, guns, and locations. We introduced that strategy right around the 2020 timeframe, really when we took over as an executive staff. What we were having is a lot of shootings out in the street, drive-by shootings, things like that. And we started looking at data and really examining a lot of the crimes, and we realized, hey, it's the same people who are doing this. They're driving around in cars doing it. They're clearly using guns to commit gun violence, and they were happening in the same places all the time. So we started concentrating our effort on the people. It's just much like your VCTF or your focused deterrence. Concentrate your efforts on the small amount of people, the small group that is driving your violent crime. That's the people. Cars, stop cars. For traffic violations, whatever you can. In the Chapter 20 violations in the general statute book is pretty thick. There's a lot of reasons to stop cars, and we got a lot of people who violate the law. So stop those cars. That's where we're catching a lot of the people doing bad stuff. The guns. I just went over that in the last slide. Our focus is going to be continue your investigation. If we can seize guns out of it, then absolutely do it. And then look at our hotspot maps. Look at crime stat policing. The data will tell you where you need to go and concentrate your limited forces inside the city, put them in those locations, and I guarantee it will drive down crime. Brentwood Crossing is probably my biggest example that we can use right now. It's been through the roof. Crime has been. It's still not good, but it's gotten a ton better. We made a couple of key arrests over there, shut some things down. We got a good officer presence, and naturally, I think your numbers are going to decline. The problem is it's one small area, and we got roughly 57 square miles to cover. We got 116,000 citizens that need police service. So it's very, very hard to take a lot of people and push them in that small area and still get the job done in the rest of the city. So those are your impact numbers. I want to make sure we go over those. Again, this is what your city is going to be judged on. And for 2022, that's pretty good. If we hadn't had all of the EBT, we had a lot of fraud. Those skimmers were put on a lot of things in town. We had a ton of EBT theft, debit card theft, and things like that. Right in the month of December, we were minus 7% in December. By the time we got to January and got all those reports done, that's what drove us down to minus 4. That's how many we had. So numbers looked a lot better at Christmas, and then within 2 weeks, it dropped to minus 4. So my point is, your officers are doing a great job. They're out there focusing on what they're supposed to focus on and doing a pretty good job in some pretty rough waters right now. Yes, sir.
Just got more of an observation. I mean, from what I know, opportunity and crime are inversely related. So as opportunity decreases in some areas, some cities and districts of the state, you'll see crime increase. And High Point's one of those cities that Britt and I talk about a lot, that how industry left in some ways and the economy went down in this city for quite a bit. But if you look at these lines, the crime seems to, one, you guys are making it unsafe for criminals to do crime here.
Exactly what we want.
Work. But I also see a correlation in that as the city's kind of improving and recovering from the NAFTA situation and recession and whatever, it seems like economically things are getting better in High Point, and that there may be some correlation also with that, and that you had whole pockets of places where there were no work opportunities, where nothing going on, and as that's changing, you're starting to see that timeline matches, that the crime started to decrease in those areas as well.
It is, yeah. But we've said before, we're going to have to create a safe environment for us to be prosperous. It's as simple as that. If we don't, then I guarantee those numbers will be just the opposite. That population line, that's the black line, will go the other way if we're not creating a safe city. I guarantee it. That's going to remove your tax base. It's going to remove your economic opportunities through business or whatever it may be. But you're exactly right. You're reading the graph right. That's exactly what we want. Our population is going up. We're getting bigger and better and pushing crime down. Any other questions before I turn it over?
Just one, actually a couple. Councilman Williams again. I saw one of the numbers when it pertained to guns. It said surrender guns. How did that happen, if you don't mind?
We get a lot of folks that will bring guns to the police department. We have deaths, maybe people with gun collections, I don't know what it may be. Family members just don't want, some people don't like guns. So they will bring them to us for turnover, for seizure, and we will take those guns, we'll seize them, test fire them, put them in the NIBIN system, and then have them destroyed or sold at auction.
I just remember, like, I think I remember a program where they would tell people you can bring the gun to us.
Gun buybacks,
Yeah, I was just curious on how that happened.
historically run through the federals side, though. Gun backs through ATF.
The other part, you mentioned Brentwood Crossing, can you, or is there anything that indicates like when that changed? Did it, I mean, all of a sudden became an issue there? Was it, maybe correlated with a change in management or just?
Well, with the change in management, I will tell you, they did have a change in management, so that is a good point. There were some management issues over there, too, that didn't help the problem. When the new management came in, I think a lot of fingers got pointed at the police department saying they're not doing their job, and we had to put the brakes on that and say, well, hang on, we are doing our job. We're telling you who your problems are, and you're not doing anything about it. We did have a management shift. We got much more cooperation out of them, and that definitely helped drive some of those numbers down in Brentwood Crossing. Now, the unfortunate part of this, if you laid a hotspot map over our city, I bet that area around the 200 to 400 block of Brentwood would still be glowing red. It's just where a lot of the crime is going to be committed, and it's in that B2 area. When he gave that ward map earlier, while we're driving crime down, that is still probably our #1 area. And unfortunately, I'll bet, I've been here since 1995, I bet if you laid a heat map over the city every year, that would be a hot spot for us.
Just curious, and I know that we've tried to, in the past, reach out to property owners, not so much trying to be, accusal, but just trying to partner with them. How can we work together to help clear this up? So that's why I wanted to kind of get an idea. If there's like a new management there, maybe we can have some conversations with them.
Partnership is the key, and we did, it started off rocky, but it got better. Once we started seeing results, that helps too, when you see crime going down a little bit. But they were a big role in helping us get to where we needed to be, or trying to be. We're not there yet. All right, I'm gonna have a Major Sellers come up for the next portion.
And, Mr. Chairman, if I may, let me say to Major Sellers, congratulations.
Oh, you beat me to it?
Thank you
Thank
for your
you.
service.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone.
For a great career.
Yeah.
I haven't seen him in there yet, so.
Yes, you have.
We heard Chief's not going to accept it, so.
I hope he does. I'm not going far. I will be close. Good evening, and I am happy to be before you this afternoon to present to you a division that is very close to my heart, our community division, community engagement division. I'm going to start by recapping what our focus is. We focus on youth, we focus on education, and community interest. One of the things we say, if it's important to our citizens, it's important to us. And so what we have done, and you should be very proud, our men and women have done a phenomenal job last year of developing new programs and highlighting some of our older programs that's been in existence for a while. And if you're not, let me say this, if you're not friends with the High Point Police Department on social media, please join, because you will see a lot of different activities, and we have a communication specialist that keeps everybody updated with the things that we're doing. So please befriend us if you haven't done so already. One of the first things that you will see is our stats in regards to the community-related calls. And again, these are the calls that are positive, non-enforcement actions. Now, here it says over 2,500 calls, but I'm going to tell you that number is incorrect. It is a lot more than that, because some officers like myself sometimes get out and get engaged and get involved, and we forget to check out or to initiate a call. So we know the numbers are higher than what that states. But in addition, we also look at our community-related activities. I look at them in two parts. One is external and one is internal. Okay, so our external are the things that you see, like you see our mascots there. You see Officer Courage and Lieutenant Justice. They are in high demand. We get a lot of requests for them to make appearances at schools, at the library, different events throughout the city. So many that we had to issue an additional request for additional officers to fill some of these roles because we don't have enough people that can respond to all these different events that they're being requested for. So you also see here Angels in Blue. That is, it grows. It started 2014. It's just amazing to me how many people we are able to assist and help. This year, we helped over 45 families, and this is the one event that we have through our department I can say everyone gets involved in. And what makes it so unique is every dollar and every dime that goes into this program comes from the men and women of the High Point Police Department and from the community partners that we've met. So that's where all the support comes from, and we're able to sustain, and we've been able to sustain. This year we partnered with, we started last year with communities and schools, and that has grown tremendously. Our Community Day, everyone should know what that is. That is a time where in the past has been in September or October. This year will be in October, and it's grown as well. We will be in Moorhead Rec this year, and it's just a time when we basically invite any and everyone within our city to come over and spend time with us. We focus on our kids. Once again, we're focusing on our youth, okay? Women Empowerment Institute, brand new. This is an internal aspect. We have to focus on keeping our staff. We must focus on retention. We have to focus on that because it's such an important aspect of our job. And law enforcement by nature is a male-dominated profession. So we created, is what we call it, Women Empowerment Institute, but we created WE as a way to motivate and inspire our females to reach their fullest potential. And we do this by having quarterly meetings, and we bring in guest speakers to educate us and just to help us be our better, or be better, period. And that does amazing for motivation, okay? And just going through, let's see, improving police and community teamwork is Impact. Impact is brand new. Impact, we started last year, and the summary of the members of Impact, when it concluded, they informed us this is kind of more along the lines of our Citizens Academy. We want it to be a little more in-depth than the Citizens Academy. So what we've done is we sat down with the men and women that are part of that team. They told us what they wanted, and basically it's a conversation piece. So moving forward, what we do is we've highlighted 6 different dates, and it looks like it actually may be more than that, where we go throughout the community, we host meetings, and we educate. Whether we're talking about protecting your home, whether we're talking about traffic areas or traffic safety, we're talking about schools, we talk about how we operate or why we operate in a certain capacity. So the basis is education and communication. And so it is off to a great start. We had our first meeting for the year a couple of weeks ago. One of the community members, he was the host, and we had it up north at Rickster's Grill, and we had business leaders come, and businesses talked about their concerns for having businesses here in the city, and we addressed those concerns. And so, as you see, we just have so many different, and this is a nutshell of the programs that we have and we've done. And I may skip over a few for the sake of time, because I definitely want to get to our Read to Me program. One of the things that our division did during the summer, they would go out to different neighborhoods and officers would read to the kids. And I've always enjoyed reading, but I wanted something that had HPPD's personal stamp on it. We do so much within our walls of the police department. So I'm happy to announce that April 1st, we have a book release, and we have a book that we have published. And this book talks about all our different, or some of our different activities and events that we host. And it's basically, it describes a little boy, and he is traveling throughout the city, throughout the year, attending these different events. So if you want more details about the book, go to our social media pages and look at the book release that's scheduled for April 1st at the public library from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. Okay? So we're really excited about that. I want to come on down some to the active shooter presentations. That was a series that we did, again, on education, and involves education and our youth, because what we did was we had different sessions talking about how we, the High Point Police Department, would respond to an active shooter at our school or at our schools or at a business here within the city. How we would respond. We wanted our people to understand what our actions would be. We also wanted them to understand what we needed them to do. And so those went very well. They went very well. They're still going very well because we still are doing the presentations in businesses. So that was definitely well needed and well received. And I'm going to go on down to, let's skip a couple. Let's do peer support. Peer support is internal, okay? I'm going back to the retention. We've revamped our peer support program. And peer support is very active, and they're there to support our employees. They also recommend different resources when they see an officer or an employee that may be in need of different services. We have a great relationship with mental health associates of the Triad. We keep them busy. We keep them busy. This is a very big need for us, keeping our staff safe and keeping them well. And part two to that, if you see at the bottom, Police Assistance Caring Team, we call that PAC. That is in collaboration with peer support. And basically what they do, they do a wellness check kind of on our people. If you've had a family emergency, or if you've had someone, let's say, in your family pass away, they're going to make contact with you, and they're going to make sure you have the resources that you need. Again, this is a small portion of the different things that we do, and we do tons of different things. And a lot of these are new. A lot of them have been in existence. A lot of them have been revamped, and we have tons more that's on the agenda. And along the lines of officer wellness, I want you to think about it this way. Crime fighting is number one, but we've revamped our community division and our non-enforcement actions, and we're asking the officers to be that much more intentional about the community involvement as well. They were already doing it, but now we're asking them to be that much more involved. So we're adding to the plate as well. But it's good results, definitely. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman. All right, first, when it comes to your active shooter presentations, were there teachers, administrators, and parents in this?
Well, in these we had, in some, yes. We focus highly on our schools. That was what we extended an open invitation. And so, yes, you had teachers, you had parents, but most of them were school personnel. We wanted to address them first because we wanted them to have a clear understanding of how we would respond and what we needed them to do and what they needed to be aware of. And I say yes because a lot of them are parents, and a lot of them have kids, throughout our schools and in neighboring jurisdictions. And it's very important because although we focus on our schools here in our city, we also invited our neighboring schools or neighboring jurisdictions, because we know if they had an event, they will be reaching out and we will be responding to them as well. So we wanted to have a collaborative effort.
The October Community Day.
Yes.
You said October, is there a date?
There is a date, and it has passed my memory. I think it's like the third weekend. Again, get to our Facebook page. October 28th.
Okay, I can make that.
So you can make that, put it in your calendar.
Right after March, but I'll be there. Well, I think we got Operation In as much, but okay. We'll make it work.
We're part of Operation In as much as well. We're going to be part of that. We're partnering with Green Street Baptist Church in April, and we're helping them.
Okay, I'm going to be tired in October.
You are.
And the last thing, and I think I understood you correctly. I'm going to say this next piece just to throw a jab at Britt. Is your book on Amazon?
Book is not on Amazon because we want to see your lovely face. We want you to come out and meet our mascots. We
You're gonna
want
have to
you.
show up in person, Chris. You're gonna have to get out from behind the
Get you.
keyboard.
No problem, I can break.
Okay. You're welcome, you're welcome. That's a great question. You stop. Any additional questions for me? I'm actually going to leave some postcards here. This is some of the things that we pass out to people when we go out in the community, so you can see some of our upcoming events, okay? Thank you all.
Thank you.
Get my stuff. Here you go.
And again, that list you see on the left is not a comprehensive thing. There's so many more. We were just putting some things down on there to get it a little more concise. But I'm glad Petula hit the two pieces of the puzzle. When you hear community, you think it's everything that's outside of our walls. That's not the case. That community piece is just as much inside of our walls. We are having to pay much more attention to our own people now. This profession has evolved, especially over the course of the last 5, 6, 7 years. Whereas before, when a lot of us first started, you know, your officer's mental health, it was suck it up. Let's be honest, that's what it was. Now we're having to pay much more attention to our people and their mental well-being. We want to keep them in place. I mean, it's hire to retire. That's what we want our folks for. So we're paying much more attention to it. We're doing a much better job. It's, you know, unfortunately, that side of the house is expensive.
Yeah.
It is. You have to pay attention to those things and budget for them. I think that's caught us off guard a little bit. But we're trying to make plans, and I appreciate her hitting that in her presentation, because that piece of the puzzle, the internal community side, is just as important as the external. You got to have the officers to go out and do the job in the street. Last part, we'll bring it home with Major Cheeks, Major Curtis Cheeks. Anybody doesn't know, recently promoted in January 1 after Mark Kuhn retired. He runs our support services side. He'll bring a little bit of our personal side and our training to finish this thing up.
All right, I'll get started. So in support services, a big part of component of what we do are three main things: hiring and retention, our training, and then our development. So you'll see here on the slide, outlines how many training hours we had for the total of last year. That averages out to 136 hours on average per employee. State of North Carolina requires 24 hours of training for a police officer. That is it. It is your bare bones, minimum, plain vanilla training across the board, the same for everybody. We know, we've long known that does not cut it for what's expected and required of police officers, not only in this city, but nationwide. So we've always had a training program that's gone above and beyond what the state requires. If an officer does nothing but our in-house training program, they'll get over 70 hours of training per year. As you can see, we're averaging 136 hours. Our civilians are included in those numbers as well, because again, employee development is a big part and big component of what we're looking to do as a police agency. When we talk to the recruiters about what we're looking for, what we're trying to do, I tell them all the time, hire character, train for skill. That's what we're trying to accomplish. So if we can get someone in with good character, we like our chances of being able to train them and give them the skills necessary to be effective and efficient as a police officer. A little pop quiz for you real quick. How many days of field training does a new officer receive before you see them in a car by themselves on solo patrol? And since Ryan's volunteering, I'll ask him for the answer. 180 days? He said 180 days. We say 16 weeks, but remember, we work 4 days on, 4 days off. So it's 64 days. 64 days, and at that point, we have to make a decision. Is this person swimming just enough to not drown? Or do we need to remediate them some more, give them additional training? Or is this job just not for them? We used to say during the training experience when we worked on the training team, at the end of 16 weeks, you either have a career or a life experience. And the difference is you might not be working here anymore. But if they're not the right fit for us, they're just not the right fit for us. But 64 days is the amount of time. Now, basic law enforcement training, but once they get to us, we put them through what we call mini school. which is another month of training before they even hit the street. And then they are also included in our in-service training. So again, we go well above and beyond the minimum of the state. This next slide here, you'll see some staffing and demographics, but I'll focus on a couple other things to give you all as highlights for last year as a whole. So when we started 2022, one of the things we do every year, we ask how many people are planning on retiring from the police department. So we knew that 6 people at some point during the year were going to leave the department. The recruiters were told, okay, to plan for those losses, your target is to hire at least 11 people. We hired 30 people for the police department. We ended the year with 42 vacancies. So that lets you know the water we're treading. When you talk about all the work that was still accomplished and done throughout the course of the year. Right now, we've got 223 of our 261 sworn positions filled. 15 of those individuals are in training, 6 of them are injured. So we have a total of 38 vacancies and 59 people unavailable for calls. So what that means for us is if you take our 116,000 community members and you divide it up amongst the 202, each one of us as officers is responsible for about 575 people in this city, not counting the visitors. To further compound that, you got some people in the building that don't answer calls, like the chief and the rest of the executive staff. So to kind of put that into perspective, you know, it's always interesting when people say, I saw 36 cops at this call. No, you didn't. You might have seen a couple, but you didn't see 36, I can promise you. I wanted to point those things out because, again, we talk about our 3-year trend, our 3-year average, the reductions we've seen, the work we're putting in, the impact on violent crime, but your police department's operating at about 75% of its operating numbers. I kind of equate it to, you know, cutting your grass. Cut your grass, you're trying to get the lines in it looking good, but you know you only have a quarter tank of gas. You're gonna get some progress, you're gonna get some things done, but what you're hoping for is that 1, you don't run out of gas before you finish, and 2, you know at some point you're gonna need to refill because you gotta do it all over again. That's kind of where we're at right now. We're not going to lower our standards to bring people in the door. There's countless examples across the nation on national news of why that's a horrible idea. We've stuck to the lines of best hiring practices for us as a department based off of trends and what we're seeing around the country. But it is it's a tasking lift for the men and women in our doors. So again, I'll be short with it. Won't burden you with too many numbers. But any questions for me?
All right, Chief. All right, last little bit to bring it home. As you can see on that slide, 30 new hires in a year. That's a record for us. I mean, we haven't even been close to that in years past. So our 2 recruiters have really picked it up and put it down and get those people in here. And again, the unfortunate part is we didn't make up that much ground. You would think you're hiring 30, we'd be much lower, but we're not. But hey, our team's on the field. That's what we're going to say right now. The people we got out there, what we got out there, and they're getting it done. So we're getting more with less at the time. I just don't know how sustainable that is for the long term. Again, we're a business that's open every single day, and the business is not going away. To finish this off, I do want to tell you, moving into 2023, I've given our department 3 goals, just 3. This is coming from the chief of police. And now, every assistant chief, and they have their own divisions, I'm sure they gave their people a subset of goals that they want to accomplish interdivisional. And I'm glad they did that. But my 3 goals for 2023, to close this down, I want us to remain a full-service police department for the entire year. So January 1, 2024, I am looking for every unit that we have, special unit, detective division, you name it, to be in existence in January 1. Now, can we sustain that if we continue to lose people? It's going to be hard. I have to sort of give you the caveat to it. We'll keep those units in existence. They may not look like they do today. A detective unit with 5 people may have 1. in January 24 if we can't sustain if we keep having the losses like we've had been over the course of the last 2 years. But it is important for us to remain full service. We owe that to our citizens. I mean, we have a crime happen in the street. I want detective units to be in place, subject matter experts that can follow up on those crimes and try to bring the victims to justice. It's as simple as that. So that's a goal. We're holding steady at the moment. They've done a great job of hiring people. We've got a lot of new recruits in the building right now, so it's looking okay, but I mean, things change quickly in this business. I wouldn't have said we would lose 30 some odd people last year either, but we did. So we're hoping not to replicate that. Number two, we're looking to reduce our sworn officer vacancies to below 30. Right now, we're sitting at the 38 mark, I think, close. So I'm looking by January 1, 2024 to get below 30. Now, if it's 29, great. If it's 21, even better. If it's lower than that, awesome. I just don't know what kind of capacity we have to get that many people in the door nowadays, because not a lot of people want to do this job. So we got to get that small pool of people and tell them we're the best. Out of all the police agencies, you come work for us. We're going to give you a job, and you'll get to do your job here in High Point. Now, the problem is, as you can see underneath there, we know we have 9 losses coming up this year. That's known retirements, people walking out the door, and I think we could have potentially 13 total. So that while we're sitting at 38 vacancies now, we haven't offset the 9 and whatever else comes in that we don't know about, those unexpected losses. So that could be a hard one to hit, but I think it's a goal we got to have. At some point in time, we have got to start picking up and reducing those vacancies. It's as simple as that. The job's not going anywhere. You got to have people to do the job. And the last one, we want our total impact crime percentage to be better than 2022. Again, think if it's built off the year before. So we are looking to do better than we did in 2022. We were minus 4%. Now for 2023, that does not mean you need to be negative 5%. That's not the case at all, but that number needs to be a negative. It can be negative 0.01, and that means we've gotten better. Now, of course, I want the negative number to be as high as we can get it, because that tells me we're making a safer city. And I think right now, in week 11, wherever we are at, we count through the weeks of the year, tracking stats, I think we're sitting at a 16% right now, a plus 16. So we got some work to do, but historically throughout the year, we'll be able to track those down. We'll adjust our game a little bit, focus on some stuff like the people, cars, guns, and locations, in particular crimes, and we'll drive those numbers down. So hopefully as we continue through the year, we'll see that 16 to drop to 15 to 14. And at the end of the year, hopefully we're sitting on a negative number. But those are our 3 goals for the year. I don't think any of them are unrealistic. I think they're all obtainable and they're all trackable. We'll know if we get there or not. I didn't want to go too wide on our goals because the profession is probably the hardest I've ever seen right now. It's tough out there, but your crew, your police officers, your staff, not just our officers, it's our civilian employees too. They're doing a great job in-house. They keep us afloat on many, many levels. But everyone there is working at capacity at the moment. It's just a matter of how long can we sustain that pace and keep pushing that down. But as Deputy Chief Gamble said when he came up here, we appreciate you guys too. We appreciate all the council and the support from the staff at the city. They have been nothing but supportive of us in our efforts. And I know this business that we're working in, it's volatile. It's an ugly business at times. It really is. I mean, you look on the news, some pretty things aren't happening there in law enforcement. But that's part of the job. We're just going to make sure we try and do it the right way every single time. And I think this police department through the years has shown a long-standing history of being able to do it the right way for a long time. We have that history to lean on. But a big piece of that is council support. We appreciate what you do for us. We appreciate the open support too. It's easy to look behind closed doors and people tell you, give you the thumbs up. But that's not been the case with you guys. You've been out front with it, and it's very much appreciated and it's noticed too. Any questions for me? I know we've taken probably longer than we really wanted to, but I apologize for that.
I'm good. Just to continue to say, I think one of the most important pieces of what y'all presented today in the chart was that you have more population but better results. And I think we just overlook that too much. That you have more, you're working with more people, but you have continuously shown a reduction in crime. And then that's commendable.
And it also helps when you're bringing the right people into town. That population, our citizen base is pretty good. I mean, I think the majority of our citizens base is very supportive of us. Would you agree? Absolutely. And that's a big piece of the puzzle. I mean, because there's no way we could effectively police 116,000 plus people if they were all bad. It's not going to work. It just simply doesn't work. So concentrate on your few that are causing you problems.
I would say thank you for the presentation. Echo what Councilman Williams said to Major Sellers, that we'll see you around though. But thank you for all you do. You and Cheeks for sure. Like, I've never been to a community event where I haven't seen one of y'all being the positive, outpouring face of the city and the police department. So for that, we thank you so much for everything you've done.
We appreciate you having us. Thank you.
I certainly echo everything they said, and you could make your numbers one better before you leave here tonight by not letting Major Sellers go. But I've heard you repeat it through the years, and you guys do an amazing job. We're very proud of you and fortunate to have you. It's a sad commentary that you that do the kind of work that you do on behalf of every citizen, whether they know they're impacted by your work or not, has had to work in the environment that you have had to for the last 5 years or so.
It's been tough.
And we appreciate you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Nothing else for this council. We are adjourned.